Welcome back. You are tuned in to Traders Nation. Once again, I'm pleased to have an original broadcast interview, this time with John B. Taylor, book author of Global Financial Wars. He's also Treasury Undersecretary. He was appointed by George W. Bush. John, welcome to Traders Nation. How are you today?
It's good to be on Traders Nation. I'm doing great, thanks.
Glad to have you here, John. Listen, September 11, 2001 really changed everything as we know it, including the global financial markets. How's it affected us?
Well, 9/11 created this great need to try to go out and freeze terrorist assets and trace the money down. It had never been done to this degree before, and it began right then. Yeah. It was also a tough time for the markets. You remember what it was like. We had a recession. We had financial crises. It was a tough time.
Yeah, the recession, though, wasn't that really a shallow recession during that time? It was like a real bump in the road, wasn't it?
Yeah, it turned out to be a very shallow one. But we're in a global economy now where recessions have become less frequent and milder.
Yeah.
The recession in 1991 was also mild. So we're in a different world now. No recessions anywhere in the whole world. No financial crises anywhere in the whole world. It's really amazing. It was a good streak.
Yeah. I tell you what, we're enjoying it. Freezing terrorist assets, we've become pretty successful at doing that. Still on the prowl, right?
Yeah. There's it started in a big way after 9/11. That's one of the things my book's about, and it is developed more now. It's being used against North Korea. It's used against some Iranian banks. So it's a big part of the effort, and nobody knows about it. That's why I wrote this book. It's something that people need to know about if they're interested in the war on terror.
Right. Now, you mentioned North Korea. They're counterfeiting American currency. That's a threat for us, doesn't it? You got this guy, okay?
Well, it's not only a threat to our currency. They're using the money from that counterfeit $100 bills to help finance this nuclear program. So it's a big part of it. We shut down a bank in Macau simply by telling U.S. banks we might let them deal with that bank.
Yeah. How are they passing it, though? They can't be passing it among their own population. They've got to be getting it out into circulation on the world markets. Who in their right mind would take this currency knowing that it's coming in like that?
Well, banks like this, Banco Delta Asia in Macau, is distributing it. A lot of unsuspected people take these $100 bills. That's why we're spending more effort in the U.S. to try to make it more difficult to counterfeit this currency.
Right. Well, our technology as it improves will do that. But I don't know, would it really take out a country like Korea that's probably hell-bent on undoing and counterfeiting like that, would it?
Well, you not only make our currency more difficult to counterfeit, you help prevent them from distributing it through banks and through other financial means, and that's one of the things that's been quite successful in this operation.
Right. They can counterfeit it all day long. If they can't get rid of it, doesn't do them any good, and I think that's probably the approach, seeing that they're so isolated, right?
Right, exactly.
All right. Now, Afghanistan, very successful theater, and we got the Taliban out of there. Financial reconstruction going on in Afghanistan. What kind of major progress have we made over there?
Well, the country is unified. When I first went there in early 2002, after we just got things set up, there was still warlords in different parts of the country, weren't sending their customs revenue into the center. Now they're much more unified than they were, and it's a democracy. It's still tough. You got Taliban coming down from the mountains in the east, but it's a big improvement on the economy side. Believe it or not, Iraq's economy is doing better than most people think, despite the difficult security problems, and the financial part of this operation is the reason for that.
Well, that was my next question. Iraq, not so stable politically and on the war side. But what about financially? Bring us up to speed on that.
Yeah, well, financially, it's quite stable. The currency has been very strong, and the reason for that is the United States and the Allies really made an effort to provide stability in Iraq when Saddam fell. It was planned in advance just in case there was an invasion. It worked like clockwork. Lots of dedicated people, that's the dedicated financial warriors, making it happen. They had to print the equivalent of 27, get this, 27 747 plane loads of currency, new currency, into Iraq without Saddam's face on it, and it was very popular in the country.
I bet it was. Very interesting. All right, now, what about inflation? Any type of inflation there? Can people, are they feeling any sort of pinch financially throughout the markets in Iraq?
Well, basically, the financial system's working better than it did with Saddam, where you had this hyperinflation and a very weak currency. Now it's a strong currency, and the inflation rate's much lower than it was. Central bank still has to be careful about controlling inflation, and the United States is working with the central bank. Central bank governor know him well. He's a terrific professional, dedicated civil servant, and he's working in an amazingly tough environment. You can imagine what it's like to be a central banker in Iraq.
Right. Now, you had a lot of meetings with the presidents. Give us an example of what it would be like to sit in a NSC meeting.
Well, one good example is when I presented our currency plan for Iraq in the Situation Room to get the president's approval to move to the next phase of that operation. So I presented it with the PowerPoint slides, and good discussion with the Secretary of State, and there were three four-star generals in the room, and basically a good discussion, and got the president's approval, and then had to go to Iraq to make it happen.
Right. Now, you described the Situation Room actually as a small room, which kind of surprises me. At times can be cramped. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a very small room given the number of people that are in there sometimes, and when all the chairs are filled and the president's at the head of the table and the video screens are at the end, when all the chairs are filled, it's like I call it a crowded bus on during rush hour.
That's right. All right. New rules for the International Monetary Fund, the IMF for short. Wasn't the fund created to avert certain financial crises by providing funds to countries, help them out, bail them out? How's that coming along?
Well, in the 1990s, we had a slew of crises. You remember Mexico, Asia, Russia. We had Russian contagion that affected the whole world. Now we're in a much better situation. There isn't as much contagion as there used to be.
Right.
When Argentina defaulted in 2001, there was no contagion, completely different from Russia. And part of that, I think, is because the IMF is more predictable. People understand what it's doing better, and the international financial system is doing better as a result.
Yeah. What would be a good example of IMF coming in and really helping out and doing some good?
The most recent example is Uruguay. When Uruguay was hit hard by Argentina back in 2002, the IMF helped out quite well. But since then, since there's no crises, they've been able to just get out of the way and just let the world economy rip.
All right. Negotiating mother of all dead deals. I found it interesting. Let our viewers and listeners know about that. Yeah.
Well, the Argentina debt default could have had ripples around the world like the debt default in Russia.
Sure.
But by being very gradual about it, being very predictable, it didn't have that impact. And in fact, I know you're interested. You got a lot of traders and currency traders on the phone. The currency markets are just working much better now. Volatility's down. I know actually lots of traders like volatility, of course, but volatility's down, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Now, forgiving foreign debt, is there really a flip side to that? Do we somehow get that back somewhere, some way?
Well, when the United States forgives debt to the very poor countries, of course, that's debt that's not being paid anyway, so we simply recognize it.
I see.
When the World Bank forgives debt to poor countries, it's basically moving into a much better situation because those countries shouldn't have been getting loans in the first place.
Yeah.
And so now you give them loans, give them grants rather than loans, and you make sure the money is being used for good purposes. So it's a better way to make this whole thing work.
Yeah, so they're not paying it, we forgive it, and we look great for doing it. We move it to another category as loss.
Stop giving them loans and start giving them grants, right?
All right, yeah, fair enough. All right, now, where can we find your book at, John? All the major bookstores?
Yeah, wherever good books are sold. Of course, Amazon and Borders and Barnes & Noble, but lots of independent bookshops all around the country. I'm really pleased it's at good places, and happy to talk about it, too. Spent a lot of effort trying to describe to people this untold story.
Yeah, now if there's one thing in this book that really stands out to you, what would it be?
I think the successes. This is a story of things that are working well, things that work right, and people should understand about the things that work as well as the things that don't work. There's so many books out there about what went wrong. Mm-hmm. This is a book about what went right. And it explains why. And a lot of it has to do with these dedicated people and the organization and the executive branch of our government working together.
Right. All right. That's awesome. Once again, John B. Taylor, head on out to your favorite bookstore today. It's literally everywhere. Now, John, do you have a website that people can go to also, maybe?
GlobalFinancialWarriors.com.
It's pretty easy, isn't it? All right, GlobalFinancialWarriors.com, an excellent book, The Untold Story of International Finance in a Post-9/11 World. That world has changed, hasn't it, John?
It's remarkably different as a result. Yep.
Sure is. John B. Taylor, thanks for being on Traders Nation.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it. All right, there you have it. Global Financial Warriors. Go out and get yourself a copy today. Great things said about this book. Alan Greenspan, David Kennedy, and a whole lot more. Get yourself a copy of it today. You are tuned in to Traders Nation, of course. You don't want to go anywhere on the other side. We're going to talk about stocks and a whole lot more. You don't want to miss any of that, of course. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Bill.